Hi, my name is Sarah Gifo and I'm here with
Cheyenne Schaefer.
And I am Charmaine Schaefer.
Okay, today I will be discussing an article that really caught my eye. It was called Society and Sex Roles Based on Women's Rights in Different Cultures and Stereotypes Between Men and Women. During the early times when hunting was all you did for society, it was very different. Humans, like women, were not dominant. So in this case, the article clearly stated women do not hunt, they lack skills and strength. Do you guys think it was a reasonable excuse? Like, do you think women were being stereotyped because of their strength?
I would totally think so. Because I just think that women in general don't have as much strength as a man. But it doesn't mean that they lack skills.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's kind of a sexist question.
What do you think?
I agree with her because I think that just because they may not have the strength, they obviously can be smart enough to do other things and stuff like that. So,
Answer. Okay. So young women did not hunt until they became pregnant. Do you think it was fair for women to get pregnant right after they were old enough to hunt?
I don't know if I understand the question exactly.
Like when they were old enough to hunt, they got pregnant right away. Do you think it was fair for them?
well, did they do it on purpose? Is that what we're trying to say? Like,
In some
because
cases,
they didn't
I
want
think.
to work, maybe?
Just in general.
So did they have
So
to
they
hunt
had to
when
get
they were
pregnant like right when they
They
were
hunt
old
when they
enough.
were pregnant?
Yeah.
If they had to hunt when they were pregnant, I just think it's because you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so men and women were able to work alone to feed themselves. Do you think it was right that they were just able to exchange little food?
No.
Agreed.
Because why should they give a little bit of food just because they were the ones that went out and hunted for it? What if you switch the roles and it was the woman that went out and hunted for the food, then I would hope that she wouldn't give like a little bit to somebody else. Like you should just share equally.
And knowing the woman's strength, do you feel like the woman would just have less food than the men because she doesn't have those like skills in order to?
But she's got the skills to cut it up.
From the sounds
Sorry,
of the
I-
passage, I would agree with what you just said.
Okay.
Just because a woman doesn't have the strength doesn't mean she doesn't have the skill. Just saying.
Okay. And last question: do you think it was right that men would be more prestige if they had killed an animal or deer? In this case.
Would it be right?
Yes.
No. Just because they have the strength doesn't mean that they're better than a woman. I am for women's rights, by the way.
Okay. And remember, they would be. Do you think it was right that they'd be more prestige and people would respect them more than a woman if they had killed an animal?
No.
And why do you think that?
Why should they be? Are you talking about a woman or a man?
A man.
Didn't I just answer that question? I just think that why should he get all the credit?
Yes.
It works both ways. So.
Agreed.
Okay, that's it, guys. Thank you. Okay. Hi, my name is Sarah Gifo.
My name's Lucy. I'm Sarah's mom.
In my recent interview, I had discussed the roles women had to play. I'm going to ask you a few questions, Ayesha and Shani.
Okay.
Was it okay for women to get pregnant as soon as they were old enough to hunt?
Well, yes, absolutely, because back in the time, women had to start having children right away so they could help with the chores, because back then chores were very hard. So the more bodies they had helping in the household, that's what you were supposed to do. And back then, if you did not have children early on, you were looked upon as not being a good woman.
Okay, next question. Do you feel more men were prestige if they had killed an animal compared to a woman?
Yes, back then that was considered their status. A good hunter who hunted, and the bigger the animal, the more prestige that the man would have.
Okay, but do you think if a woman had killed an animal and they weren't given the respect, it would be equal?
Well, of course it's not equal. Women have never been equal to men. Even now, a man could do something and the woman could do the same thing, and she would look at as being bad or not given the credit she deserved.
Okay. So I'm gonna switch on to the next article I had read. It was called Ain't I a Woman? The speech was written by Sojourner Truth. She was a woman activist who talked about her life and the rights she felt women should have. She states that I could work as much and eat as much as a man. How do you feel about that quote?
Well, I believe that she could do that. Do you want me to elaborate
Yes,
on that?
please.
Can you repeat that?
She states, I could work as much as men and eat as much as men. How do you feel about that quote?
Well, I think what she's trying to say is that she's a strong woman and has the I feel she has the capacity to work just as hard as a man. Is what I think she's saying.
In this case, like if this were you saying that, like, do you feel like you weren't equal if you had said this quote?
Well, I don't think that I would feel that way, but I think that women still are not considered equal to men. But I think that in her mind, she felt she had the ability to do and work just as hard as a man.
Okay. Next question. So everything was different back in the earliest centuries. Do you feel it was okay for them to live the way they did? With the whole women being pregnant and men being more dominant and respected?
Well, back then, women didn't have a say. So that's just how it was. It wasn't, I don't think that women felt that they could be as strong as men in terms of mentally and physically, because back then women didn't have a say. But I think that that didn't take away from a lot of women being very intelligent and smart.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel it's equal for women and men to have the same jobs, or if they didn't have the same jobs?
Can you repeat the question?
Like, for example, like constructing jobs and just different jobs. Do you feel like women should be able to do that?
Well, I think for the most part, most women have the ability to do many jobs that men have. I think that there are some jobs that women cannot do because of the physically we're not as strong as men. Just like there's not a lot of jobs, but there's some jobs that I believe that only women should have. Like there's no way a man can bear a child, nurse a child. So there are some things that I strongly believe that should still remain jobs of a woman, and I believe that there are some jobs that should remain jobs of a man.
Okay, that's her opinion. So I personally understand that in the early days, women were seen as less. They weren't dominant. They did not have the strength, but women felt we should all be equal. We aren't strong physically, but it doesn't mean we're not strong mentally, and we could do other things. Thank you, Lucy, for coming to
You're
the
welcome.
Hi guys, this is Sarah. This is just my wrap-up video because last week I had interviewed 3 women, Cheyenne, Charmaine, and Lucy, discussing the 2 texts called Ain't I a Woman and Society and Sex Roles. Keep in mind that they had no idea what the texts were about, no idea what the questions I was going to be asking them because they were my questions. And the texts were about just women, how back in the earliest centuries, they had no rights. They weren't dominant. Men were mostly dominant. They were overpowered. And it's just, they had to accept the way they lived, you know? So I had asked Charmaine and Cheyenne, and their opinions were based off the equality for women. And Lucy had answered based off what she already knew because she had a lot of information of how things were back in the day, and she related it to how it was now, so that was very good. And throughout the interviews I had learned a lot about how just things were back in the earliest days, so that was good to me. I just want to say that throughout life and now, women have always been stereotyped because they don't have the the strength and the physical ability to do things, but they're always smart and good in here, and men don't realize that women are being stereotyped because they're men, and that's just how things are, and they're always going to be dominant. They're given things and they don't pay attention because they already have it. But women really focus it on being dominant because they have no voice, and we barely have rights to this day too. So I think that we can do things just as men. I mean, we might not have the strength, like the woman said too, but we can really do other things, and we can do great things. So I think that women, they're always, we're always going to be stereotyped, and that's just how things are going to be. So women had to accept it back in the day, so we're just going to have to accept it too and just move on. So that was just the end of my interview wrap up, and I really hope you guys pay attention to the deep meaning and just how it is now, and let you check. So